Numatama once again gets some new support, but this time it's not Dueling Dragon, it's a Hyuga. Stand up! Vanguard! Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another set review of Phantasmal Steed Restoration. Last time we took a look at Shadow Paladin, and this time we're gonna take a look at the new Murakumo cards. And these are going to be some very interesting cards in general for the clan itself, but they also allude to some new support cards we might get in the future, the same that we have seen with Aquaforce. And that's a very odd sentence to say, that Aquaforce and Murakumo have something alike. So let's answer that question quickly by diving into the new support and see what Murakumo got in this support wave. So start off, we of course get some reprint triggers, and as always I'm gonna give them 1 star. But they actually get some new triggers, unlike a certain other ninja clan, and their third front trigger is Stealth Rogue of Rising Force Kyuchi. And they also got a third crit trigger, and for them that is Dark Knight Stealth Rogue Clock. And both of these cards are going to get 3 stars for me, because they are going to open up a lot more playability in terms of deck building for the trigger lineup for Murakumo. They also got a new starter that is a very awesome artwork, and for them that is Masako Stealth Rogue Goemon. And sadly enough, even though the artwork is pretty awesome, I'm only gonna give it 1 star, as it's just a carbon copy of the vanilla starter that we already have with Cat Devil. So yeah, it's just a palette swap. But Murakumo also got 2 new vanilla types, and for them they have a grade 1 50k shield one in the likes of Stealth Beast Brazen Ape. But I don't think this is going to be a very good one for the clan, as they are mainly focused around multi-cupping cards to the field, and you don't want to put this one onto the field. You want to put them into your hand. Sure, they have a card from the previous set that can do that, but you still need to call it to the field to enable yourself to do something like that. So in my case, I'm only going to give it 1 star, as I don't think it feels right for the clan as a whole to have a vanilla like this. However, the other vanilla that they got, the grade 2 double crit variant, Stealth Rogue of Rending Smash Miyako, is something I think the clan actually likes a lot. Because not only do they excel in copying cards, so they can call out multiple copies of this card, but by the fact that they are Excel means they can empower it with Excel 1 to 13k, meaning it hits, but they don't even have to do that because they can synergize with the new support wave that can even change everything to the same name and then give a lot of power away. They can make this thing hit for high numbers, and the fact that it has a natural double crit makes it even more deadly. And we already have previous support that can synergize with this pretty well, so I think it's a solid 3-star card for Murakumo, as they have a lot more use for this type of vanilla card than most clans do with a double crit with such a low power. So I think it's a pretty good addition to the clan as a whole. Then another generic stuff that they got was the new grade 1 draw drop PG, and that for them is Stealth Fiend Kiryu Fubuki. And it's just a additional card that allows them to play with the new trigger lineup, so they can open up for the third crit or front, and for that I'm gonna give it 3 stars, as it just opens up more deck building design. Then onwards to the specific support, and we're gonna start off with this grade 1 Stealth Rogue of Totality Sanji. And no, I'm not referring to Sanji of One Piece, although this thing, it looks like it's using his foot, and it can kick for pretty hard, as its skill is Continuous Rearguard Circle. If you have another unit with the same card name as this unit on your Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle, this unit gets fire plus 5k. If you have 2 or more, it gets plus 10k instead of plus 5k. So it either becomes a 12k attacker or booster, or it can become a 70k attacker or booster. And this whole double naming stuff might be a little bit tricky, as you need to have this thing multiple times on the field, but we have other cards that can copy certain cards' names, so that is already direct support. But the new VR can change everything in itself, meaning this thing will have the same name as your VR, and that in itself will mean you can proc this skill pretty damn easy. So it's a solid support card for the new build, and we even have some previous support that can synergize with it, so I'm gonna give it 3 stars. It's not something revolutionary, but the skill condition is very easy to pull off, and the extra power is pretty nice. Then we have another card that works with a similar condition, and that is Stealth Fiend Tango Nujo, and its skill is Continuous Rearguard Circle. if you have another unit with the same card name as this unit on Vanguard Circle or Vanguard Circle, this unit gets boost. And auto Vanguard Circle at the end of each turn, if you have 5 or more units, put this unit into your soul and draw a card. This is pretty good. That the fact that you have a grade 3 that can gain boost, and the fact that it can put itself into the soul and you get a draw out of it. Yes, you may say getting 5 or more units onto the field might be tough, and also having the same names on the field, because this isn't really a good powerful Vanguard. But as I just stated before, you have the new VR that can change everything in the same name. You're also going to swarm the field quite a lot, so having enough front row circles open can be a bit tricky. So having this thing also be able to boost is a major plus as well. But also putting itself in the soul, meaning you have a grade 3 in soul. And as you're going to see, you have a skill for the new VR that soul blasts a grade 3. So this card interacts with that pretty damn well. And for that, I'm gonna give it 3 stars. Yes, it has insane synergy with the new VR as well, but it's limited to that. And we have other grade 3s as well that synergize really well with the VR. So it will be the differ if which one is better in certain scenarios which you're gonna run. This might be a little bit more of a budget alternative. And we have to wait to see if it can work with other builds as well, as it doesn't directly work with Mandala Lord, as those are going to be Mandala Lord and not the same name as this unit. So it looks to be somewhat more limited than the grade 1, but who knows, maybe this actually be some pretty decent in other builds as well. Then next up we have a new series of cards that might become their own archetype, and I'm referring to the Special Series. Or in this case, the Special Stealth Beast series that are all centered around weasels with a single color scheme. And I'm going to address each and every one of them very quickly and then go over as a general group, as it's very hard to give them an individual rating, as there isn't really a lot to talk about them on an individual level. It's how they synergize together that makes them very interesting and potentially very powerful. So the first one I'm going to showcase is Special Stealth Beast Weasel Yellow. And its skill is continuous on Vanguard Circle. All of your other units with special in their card names on Vanguard Circle gets intercept. So this is pretty good with other grade 1s, maybe grade 0s if we ever get those, maybe grade 3s if we ever get those, but they need to get shield value. For grade 2s, it doesn't really matter as they already have intercept. It's mainly for the grade 1s to benefit from the 10k shield values at this point. Then the next one we have is Special Stealth Beast Weasel White. And that's another grade 1 that has the skill continues on Vanguard Circle. During your turn, all of your units with special in their card names on Vanguard Circle and Vanguard Circle gets power plus 2k. So these 8k grade 1s will turn into 10ks if one of these are onto the field. And if you have another one, they will turn into 12k. So it stacks with multiple copies of this unit. Then another one that we have is a grade 2 variant that is Special Stealth Beast Weasel Blue. And its skill is continuous on Vanguard Circle. During your turn, all of your units with special in their card names on the Vanguard Circle and Vanguard Circle gets power plus 2k. So it's similar to Weasel White, that it has the exact same skill, only this time it's a grade 2 instead of a grade 1. Also thing to note that this is an 8k grade 2, and the other grade 2 is also an 8k. So all weasels are 8k power. And the last one I want to talk about is Special Stealth Beast Weasel Red. And its skill is auto on Vanguard Circle. When placed, cost counter plus 1, discard any number of cards from your hand, search your deck for the same number of cards with special in their card names as cards discarded, call into the Vanguard Circle and shuffle your deck. So basically what you want to do is call this thing on grade 2 and fill your board with as much weasels as you can allow. And this basically tells you that if you have this card in your hand, all your cards in your hand are basically weasels, as you can turn them all in weasels. And it's pretty awesome that you can search them out of your deck, meaning you can filter your deck for quite a lot of numbers if you're gonna discard 5 cards or 6 cards, depending if you have Excel circles or not, if you write it as a Vanguard, all that kinds of stuff. So you can deck thin quite a lot and quite fast with this card. And currently we have 2 grade 2s and 2 grade 1s. And 1 grade 2 and 1 grade 1 have the same skill that gives 2k power to every weasel. We have the grade 1 that can give intercept, meaning if we call 2 grade 1s to the front row, we have 20k shield. And this one is the consistency engine to the whole thing. And if you call a full field and you have 3 of the weasels that give 2k power, you will swing in for 3 columns of 28k on your turn 2 that you just written up to grade 2. The only downside to this play is that you minus 6 cards on hand. because you're going to ride this thing, that's 1 on hand, then you discard 5 cards and superior call 5. Yes, you filled your field, but you probably only have 1 or 2 cards left in hand. Of course, this is the scenario where you're going to go ham. You can also tone it a little bit down and just superior call 2 or 3 cards. You can just call maybe 2 grade 1s in the front row, 1 with the intercept, 1 with the 2k power, and maybe another one as a booster, and you will have a 20k column and 2 10k columns, because you want to call at least 1 with 2k power increase, as every front row weasel will turn into a 10k, meaning if you're up against 4s and they went first, you can still hit them. And if you want to play against a defensive trigger, you want to call another weasel behind one of your columns, turning it into a 20k, or even if you're up against a clan that uses a 12k vanilla, call another 2k increase unit, and then you have 2 12k columns and 1 24k columns, meaning you can still hit them over. So these cards allow for some flexibility. It can be used as an early rush, and even for some late game filtering if you want to increase and maximize your trigger potential. So it does have a lot of synergies. However, it still is missing quite a lot, and by running these cards, you're sacrificing a lot of other tool options. So for that, currently, I'm going to give them as a whole only 2 stars, as the cards themselves aren't really that powerful and they are still missing quite a lot of stuff to make them actual viable. However, Weasel Red, I'm going to give 3 stars, as this thing is probably going to be the pivotal point for the whole archetype if we're going to get more cards, because the fact that this thing can search out anything is pretty nuts. But I can only give it 3 stars at this point, as I can only compare it with the cards that it can search out at this point, and that isn't all that great right now. But if we ever get more Weasel cards, this could be pretty nuts. Then to follow up these Weasel cards, we have a potential follow-up right, but it does have some problems in its own regard. And I'm referring to Stealth Fiend Ogre Spider. And its skills Auto and Vanguard Circle, when placed, cost Counterblast free and Soul Blast free, draw cards equal to the number of your units, and increase or decrease the power of all your rearguards to match this unit's power until end of turn. So basically what I refer to is that you use the whole Weasel play, and you're putting your cards in hand to a very low size, and maybe your opponent is trying to capitalize on that and they're gonna bash you for really hard, meaning you have the extra counterblast to spare. You can ride into this thing, use its skill, and you draw an additional 5 cards, meaning you just filled the entire hand, and you actually didn't minus at all for the whole skill that you did the turn earlier, and you actually plus 5 out of it. Sadly, the power gap is going to be lower if you have multiple +2 weasels onto the field with this card, as it just put them to 12k. It overrides their continuous skill, so your columns will be 24, 24, 24. Another thing about this card, it doesn't have an Axle Circle, so that's also pretty bad, as you have no ways of upping the pressure at all. This could actually mean that your grade 2 game had more pressure than your grade 3 game, besides the additional drive check. So it's a little bit tricky in that. And also the part, probably you're not going to use the skill at all in this scenario, because them giving your free counterblast is very unlikely. And to be honest, if my opponent did the whole Weasel play on grade 2 and they went to low hand size, I might just going to destroy their field, as they are going to lose and run out of steam very quickly by doing that. So you might not even be able to use this card in that scenario. So yeah, I think this is a very limited card. It might have some interaction with a budget build, or maybe we get some other cards that I'm overlooking that can flood the board and make this actually pretty good. So I can only give it 2 stars to maximum, and I'm being very generous with this card, to be very honest. Now with that out of the way, there is one more card I want to talk about before we go into the main new bulk support line, and that's a Dueling Dragon support card. And this is one that I didn't predict at all, and I'm referring to Central Arrestor. We had left with right, and now we have central. And its skill is continuous on Vanguard Circle. If this unit is in a back row of the middle column, so behind your Vanguard, This unit can attack the Vanguard from the back row. And if you have a Vanguard with Dueling Dragon in its card name, this unit gets power plus 5k for each of your other units with Arrestor in their card name. This is in my opinion a 4-star card for the Dueling Dragon build, because it's an additional attack for a deck that focuses on putting your opponent to a very awkward position that they cannot gain more cards for an additional turn, meaning that each and every extra single attack is all the more devastating for them. So being able to squeeze out an additional attack is even more deadlier. And in that scenario, you will have to Arrestor some to the field, meaning this thing will be 19k. But you can have multiple Arrestors, so this thing can be 24, 29, maybe you can give it even some more power boost with other skills. So this can hit hard. And also awesome thing about this card is that, yes, it doesn't synergize with the Great One Jumping Impeder. That can only search out the left and right Arrestor. However, your Dueling Dragon Zanbaku just searches out a Arrestor. So you can just Superior Call this thing as well. So it synergizes with the already established cards, and it makes the deck even more deadlier and gives the deck even more options. That is in my book a pretty deadly card for already a powerful deck that is in some regards still valuable in the current format. So yeah, this is a pretty strong card if you ask me. But now it's time to go on to the main support line, and that are the cards for the new VR. And we're going to start off with a new Grid 1 that is Stealth Rogue of Summoning Jiraiya. And its skills are auto on Vanguard Circle, when placed, draw a card and put a card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. So this is actually an additional mulligan that you have available to you if you ride this thing, and you might not be able to plus directly. However, the extra cycle is pretty good, as you can dig deeper through your deck to search for some key pieces, but also putting a card back might even be even more beneficial to you, as you have superior call effects and you need to search out specific units. And if you just accidentally draw on those in your opening hand, well, you can just put them back and don't worry, as you can just then use them the following turns if you need to call them out with other skills, so you can actually plus of skills. It actually synergizes really well with the whole engine of the deck itself. So that's already a pretty awesome skill if you ask me. But then we got the second ability, and that's Act on Vanguard Circle once per turn, cost counter plus 1, and one of your Vanguards gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. So this might actually sound pretty bad, because that clan doesn't have counter charge, and using Counter Blast to just giving your Vanguard 10k power might not really sound that great. But as you're gonna see with the upcoming cards, this is an essential skill to make your plays even more threatening. And you're not going to use a lot of Counter Blast at all. It's not like Zanbaku that uses free Counter Blast for a skill. This new build where you're going to run this card, this is one of your only Counter Blasting units at all. So you can go nuts with this skill. So with that in mind, I think this is a solid 4-star card, as it's a central key piece to the new mechanic, but it's also only limited to this new build, and maybe for future builds if we get more counter charging, or we are going to go with more builds that don't really use a lot of Counter Blast. But with other builds that already are existing, like Mandala Lord and Zanbaku, this isn't really that great, as you don't have that Counter Blast to spare for only 10k. Then a card that you're going to see will interact really well with Jiraiya is this Grade 2 Spell Beast Spell Hound. And its skill is auto on Vanguard Vanguard Circle. When placed, costs Soul Blast 2. Search your deck for up to 1 Stealth Beast Spellhound, call to Vanguard Circle, and shuffle your deck. Increase or decrease that unit's and this unit's power to match your Vanguard's power until the end of turn. So basically what you can do is you have your Vanguard, use Jiraiya to give that Vanguard plus 10k, and then call a Spellhound and use his ability. So if you did it on Grade 2, you probably have a 90k Vanguard at this point, thanks to Jiraiya. And then you're going to use Spellhound, search another one, and you suddenly have 2 additional 19k units onto the field. So you have 3 columns for 90k. It has cost you 2 Soul Blast and a Counter Blast. But then again, you also have the Jiraiya booster on one of your columns as well. So that 90k is actually 27k column. And that can be against an 8k or potentially 7k Grade 1 Vanguard as well. But you can also use this in the late game, and your Vanguard is then 22. But you can also use multiple Jiraiyas on one Vanguard, meaning you can chain this off. Also, a fun fact is if you have a lot of soul, this card doesn't specify that it needs to be called from hand. Meaning if you have 4 of 6 soul, you can call one from hand, Soul Blast 2, call another one, use its skill, Soul Blast 2, and call another one. And maybe if another Soul Blast 2, call one, but that's really pushing your luck. But overall, that's a pretty solid skill, and combine them with other cards that can power up your Vanguard, this can be actually pretty insane, as you can superior call multiple units onto the field without wasting counterblast. Soul is a little bit easier to attain for the clan. So yeah, this is in my opinion definitely a 5-star card, as it works with the current build and with the new builds. It's just a solid support card for the clan, if you ask me. The next one, we've got a brand new unit that we have seen in different forms, but never in its original form, and that is Covert Demonic Dragon Evoke. And its skill is act on Vanguard of Vanguard Circle once per turn, cost counterblast 1, and discard a card from your hand. Search your deck for up to 1 Covert Demonic Dragon Evoke, call it to Vanguard Circle, and shuffle your deck. If you have 5 or more units, all of your units with the same card name as this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. So what this skill does is you call specifically a Covert Demonic Dragon Evoke, so meaning if this card's name changes, you still search out a Evoke, not with where this current unit is named towards. Then after that point, when you superior call it, all the units with the same name as the Evoke that uses the skill, so if that unit's name is changed, then all those units with that specific name will get the 10k. Meaning the brand new superior call Evoke will not gain the power if you have changed the original one's name. So to clarify, the scenario what I'm referring to is with the new VR that can change the entire field's name to the VR's name. So if this one's on the field and you do that, this one has the same name as your VR. So if you resolve this Evoke that's now named as the VR, then if you resolve that skill, then you call a new Evoke that still is going to be called Evoke, but all your other units that has the name as your Vanguard will gain the 10k power. So you can empower your entire field for just a counterblast and a discard. But at the same time, you gain another unit onto the field. So you're deck fitting, you're getting an additional unit onto the field with more power, and that's going to be very powerful. Also, it doesn't really have to synergize with the new VR, because you can just keep it as Evoke and give all your other Evoke the 10k power. And we have a card like Metamorphox that can copy his name, so you can even empower your grid 1s, your boosters. So there are some other options. You can actually build a deck just around him if you want to. So I think this is a solid 5-star card, as it superior calls more units onto the field. It empowers a lot of units onto the field as well, meaning you put more pressure onto the field at the same time for a similar cost from one skill. That is pretty strong if you ask me. Then we ended off with the VR, which I have mentioned many times before because a lot of skills interact with it, and to clarify how skills works, and that is of course none other than Samurai Chieftain Hyuga. And its skills are act on Vanguard Circle once per turn, cost counterblast 1, search your deck for up to 1 card with the same grade as one of your opponent's unit, call it to Vanguard Circle, shuffle your deck, and until the end of turn, change the card name of all of your and your opponent's units to this unit's card name. So basically what you do is you look at your opponent's board, you see a grade that you like, that you fancy, and you're going to superior call one of those grades to your field. And you can choose any grade as long as they have it onto the field, and you can pick up any kind of units that you want. So it's a very free superior call effect. That's pretty good. So you can chain it off maybe into a Evoke or Spellhound, maybe Jiraiya. You have a lot of options to play around. But then you change everything to the name of your Vanguard. And this is where all the other cards interact with multiple names and gaining power, as well as Evoke, how that resolves. So that's pretty cool. But you can ask yourself, why do you want to change your opponent's field with the same name as your Vanguard? Usually that doesn't really interact with their skills at all. But then we have the second ability, and that's act on Vanguard Circle, cost Soul Blast 1 grade free, and return all of your opponent's rearguards with the same card name as your or your opponent's other unit to the deck and shuffle it. So basically, because all the units are called Hyuga, and you have a Hyuga on the field, their entire field is going to be shuffled back into their deck. Yes, they might not actually minus, you're not retiring, but then again, if you're up against a deck that can recur them onto the field, maybe like Blaster Blade or Blaster Dark, they might have trouble to get it back onto the field. But also, you're shuffling the entire field that most likely aren't triggers back into the deck. So their chance of getting a defensive trigger or just an offensive trigger is gonna decrease. And depending on how late it is going to be in the game, and if they're up against an extra clan, that can decrease dramatically. So this is a pretty solid field disruption skill as well. And as you've seen with the Soul Blast free skills, that does interact with the Great Free Rare that we just talked in the beginning of the video that shoves itself to the soul. So you can use it to then Soul Blast it again without forcing yourself to rewrite into another Hyuga. So this card is pretty solid. It builds boards, it disrupts boards, it even changes everything to the same name, so you can easily achieve these skills that need you to have multiple copies of the same name. So it is just a solid card for the clan in general, and I just cannot give it lower than 5 stars. This thing is insane in all levels of what you want for a VR. And I think it's gonna be a key piece for a lot of decks. Maybe not the main unit for future support, but it is a solid support card that can still be run as maybe a 1-off or 2-off in future builds, as it just does a lot for the clan itself. And with that, we conclude the set review for Murakumo. As we've seen, we had a lot of new cards. We have the new mechanic with Chieftain Hyuga that's superior calls, as well as changing everything to the same name that interacts with previous support, as well as these new cards that we have in this set. We also have this new archetype with these special stealth beasts, with these weasels that are basically go-go Power Rangers up to Planet Cray. But, and also the new Central Arrestor, which is an interesting addition for Dueling Dragon. So there is enough for everybody that is somewhat familiar with a specific type of Murakumo deck. So I think Murakumo players are very pleased with the support that they got. They have a lot of new toys, a lot of things they can try out, and a lot of different deck playabilities and different strategies that they can try to apply with this new support wave, as well as previous cards that we got from the previous 2 sets as well. So overall, I think we cannot complain, and it's a pretty decent addition for the clan as a whole. But now I want to know what you guys think of this new support wave for Murakumo. Are you happy with the new cards? Or you think it's very exciting? Or were you hoping to get something else? As we have a lot of different opinions, and I want to know what your opinion is in the comment section down below. If you're excited for upcoming set reviews of this set as well, then why not subscribe and hitting the bell button to be updated, as we're gonna dive into Dark Irregulars and Pale Moon as well in the upcoming days. But in the meantime, I want to thank my Patreon supporters over at Patreon for making this video and everything else on the channel possible. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel, then just simply do that by subscribing, hitting the bell button, and liking the video and sharing it with all your card fighting friends. But if you want to support us a little bit more directly, then you can go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.